the top element of the hadas, we were wondering. It seems that's clear that Sugya is learning that even though the rest of it is Havesh, or for certain not Hadar, we're counting the whole share, even though there's no share there. There's no real share of Hiddur. There's only one element. Is that correct?
Even though all of it is dry, as long as the top is good, it's called avos. It's not like it fell off. The fact that it's dry is not like it fell off. If it will have fallen off, then it's possible. But if it's just dry, it's still called avos, and the top is enough to save the rest of the hadas.
Okay, so we are counting it as a share. The other question I had was ha'ora. Rabbi Rosner brought the Rosh from Moed Katan to explain the chiluk from korban to over here, and he explained it like hefsa gavra. That the Rosh explains that once a korban has a mum in the korban itself, so it's finished. Like you said, demoted, finished. But the gavra, it's like an ikuv. He's not able to do the mitzvah, but he still has the chiyuv mitzvah. So the gavra has to push away the ikuv and do the mitzvah.
It's advanced for our scope of our learning, but I would think that's not a question of the gavra. It has to do with the mitzvah. There's a korban and a mitzvah. We're not looking at the gavra at all. But I would not talk that language in our scope. So the Gemara talks about the fact that the mitzvah was pushed away is it's possible to become qualified again. And the Gemara brings a point from Mishnah and Chulin, which talks about Kisei Adam. Kisov is Gala. So Kisei Adam, we started saying there's a mitzvah when you shech a bird or a deer, chaya, so you have to cover the blood. In the case was Kisov is Gala, if he covered the blood and then it got uncovered, he doesn't have to recover it again. He doesn't have to cover it again. He did the mitzvah, even though it got uncovered, he doesn't have to recover it. Kisov ruach, if the blood got covered by the wind, he does have to cover the blood. But the Gemara explains it only means if it got uncovered again. If the wind covered it and it got uncovered, he has to cover it again. But if the wind covered it and it's still covered, there's no din to cover it once it's covered, even though there's no mitzvah. It means the wind got a mitzvah. He didn't do a mitzvah. But the mitzvah was taken away. There's no issue to cover the blood if it's covered. Once it gets uncovered, so then the mitzvah to cover it. Over there we had a problem. If while it's covered by the wind, it's part to do kisei adam, he doesn't have to cover it. So when it gets uncovered, he doesn't have to. If it gets uncovered after it was covered by the wind, it got uncovered, he has to cover it. Once the mitzvah was pushed away, it was pushed away. So it's very interesting the Gemara's comparison before we're talking about the hadas, if it's a kosher mitzvah. Now we're talking about it as a chiyuv of a mitzvah. But the Gemara doesn't see a difference. That the same way we spoke about by the hadas, which was disqualified, could it become qualified again? We're talking about a similar vein. If you had a mitzvah to cover the blood and the blood became disqualified, means that there's no chiyuv to cover the blood. Could it become that it becomes qualified again? That you are chayv to cover the blood. The Gemara doesn't see the difference between these two things. And the Gemara is saying the same way it says over there by the blood. That once the mitzvah was pushed away, I have no reason to do the mitzvah. I'm not chayv to cover the blood because it was covered by the wind. I don't have to cover it again. That's a kasha that the Gemara would have asked. That you see that if the blood got covered, I don't have to cover it again. But the Gemara says no, you do have to. That the chazav in this gala, you are chayiv. The fact that when the blood was covered by the wind and then got uncovered, you do have to cover it again. That shows ein dichud, that even though while the blood was covered, there was no mitzvah to cover it, but once it got uncovered, you do have to. So the Gemara says, if that's so, ein dichud so mitzvah. The fact that the mitzvah comes back again, so too by the hadas, even though it's the puzzle hadas, it becomes qualified again, and it should be a kosher. So why is the Yemi's question about if the hadas could become kosher? Yes, the hadas could become kosher again. The Gemara answers, Papa Gufei. Rabbi Yirmiyah is not sure if Papa is right. You're right, Papa said so, but Rabbi Yirmiyah is not sure if Papa is right. Nifshe pshitulei the endi ches on mitzvahs, lo shna l'chula v'lo shna l'chumra, odilma, I'm sorry, odilma, sfukim esafkalei, l'chumra mina l'chula lo mina. It's true that the Tana over there says by the dam that the blood, you do have to cover the blood again, which sounds like ein dichud, that it wasn't pushed away. Even though it's temporarily pushed away, it comes back again. But maybe the only reason why the Tana said so is because a suffix. He wasn't sure. The Tana himself didn't know. Do you say this for of dichud or not? And therefore he said by the mitzvah of kisei adam, you have to be machmir. You don't know if you have to do kisei adam, so do it. But that now the application to the hadas is the other way. We're going to say a kula, that the case was that it was not a kosher hadas, could it become kosher again? That's going to be a leniency to say that it's kosher again. If you're saying dichud, that means that it wasn't pushed away. It means even though it's temporarily pushed away, it could become qualified again. That we don't know. So therefore, Papa is not sure. Biyamiyah seems to be sure. I'm sorry, Papa is the one who says he's sure that ein dichud on mitzvahs, and just like by the blood, also the mitzvah comes back again. So too by that das, the mitzvah could come back again. It could become kosher. But the Gemara is saying he doesn't know. And the Gemara at this point says teku. He doesn't know. And this Gemara sounds like we don't know, but we're going to see continue later on. We're going to see that we do know. And the halach is going to be that dicha meikara lo shma dicha. That even though it was temporarily pushed away, it could become kosher again. That's what we're going to paskin, but we'll hold on as we go. Like Yirmiyah thought. Like a papa thinks. Like a papa, right? A papa, right?
But it seems stronger because a papa knows for sure that it can be.
No, he said that both they're on equal standing. Am I wrong? He says that I see it, and he says I don't see. Maybe not.
Yirmiyah says he doesn't know, so he's in the middle of the papa, and papa is in the closet.
The Gemara is going to prove. We're going to have proofs to say that you don't say different. The more thinks that it has a proof from Machlokas Tanam that the Tanam themselves are arguing about this. What's the case? We had this a long time ago, but now the Gemara is going to present it in a different flavor than we had once upon a time. We had in the Mishnah about the berries that grow on the Hadassim. Again, we said in the Shuk you don't see them because they don't bring them to the Shuk. Take them off, they take the berries off. But Hadassim, sometimes they grow berries on them. And if they have more berries than leaves, the Mishnah said that it's possible. But it says you could remove the berries and it's kosher, but you shouldn't do it on Yantiv. You shouldn't take it off on Yantiv because it's Fatak and Mana. You're fixing it up, you're making something that's possibly making it kosher, don't do it on Yantiv. But now it says, what if you transgressed and you picked the berries on Yantiv? If you picked the berries off the Hadas on Yantiv and you made it kosher now, is it kosher?
Rabbi said if you eat it, it's okay.
Oh, that's going to be more coming up later on if you want to do it for the purpose of eating. But here you want to do it for the purpose of making it kosher, so you're not allowed to do it. And if you did it, if it's kosher or not. And the one wants to figure out why should it be possible. It's true, you did an avera that you picked the berries, you made it kosher. Not to pick, and you didn't pick it off of mechuber, it wasn't attached to the ground anymore. But you're not allowed to even make it kosher when it's detached. But it says that maybe it's even possible. Why should it be possible? That's what the Gemara is going to try to figure out. The Gemara is going to say it sounds like dichoy a little bit. First, the Gemara talks about tasav alaman osei. The truth is when we had the sugi once upon a time on Daf Yud Aleph, it brought the sugi of tasav alaman osei. That if it's already yontif and it's already a good, it's already bound together with the lulav, and now you're going to take now. So it's now it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle hadas that's inside the egg, and now you're going to take off the berries. So you're with a trick, so to speak, with a patent, you're making it kosher, but you didn't bind it in a kosher way. And the Gemara put this down to the sugi of tasla l'manosei before. And the Gemara is going to say maybe our Gemara thinks there's no issue of tasla l'manosei. That's interesting. Why is it not a mitzvah above Avera? New issue. That if you got this mitzvah only through the Avera, why is that not an issue? I didn't think of this. Why should it not be a problem? Mitzvah above Avera. If the only way you can do the mitzvah is by doing this Avera, so why should it not be possible because of mitzvah above Avera? I don't know. If anybody has about to say, please help us.
If you want to eat them.
Klal from Tosfos. There was a klal in Tosfos of two principles. The Tosfos is on page, 1 second, I'll show you right now. It's on page Lamed Amud Aleph. And the two principles.
What's the answer going to be? What's the answer to the question?
I'm not sure. You have to apply the principles. The principles are that either it's ma'afsher, the act. In other words, if the Avera is ma'afsher, the other mitzvah, or if by eating the tevel in the matzah, you're yotze the mitzvah of matzah in the same act.
He wasn't able to do the mitzvah. He wasn't able to do the mitzvah without taking off the berries. So he only was able to do the mitzvah by taking off the berries. So why is it not a mitzvah above Avera? I don't hear the answer yet. Okay, we'll hold on to it. We'll put it in the freezer. Question mitzvah above Avera. The Gemara wants to know why should it be a problem. The Gemara starts off Savua. The people of the Bismedish thought this. The Kul Yalma Lulav Ein Tzarech Tim Slam Tzarech Eged Le'Alfina Lulav Yisukot. They said about Tasla Manosei. First, the Gemara is like clearing the way. Don't say anything about Tasla Manosei. It means you might have thought the reason why it's possible is because Tasla Manosei. The pasuk says to make an eged. If it will say so, make an eged, and you made an eged when it was still possible, and then you make it kosher. The same case we had about putting on the schach when it's still mechuber, and then you're going to cut it off. Is that going to call kitzitzas and zuas? Only show over the end of your Aleph. Here the Gemara thinks there's no problem with tasla l'manosei. First of all, maybe there's no mitzvah to make an eged in the first place, and even if there is, there's no din of tasa. It doesn't say tasa. By Sukkot it says tasa. Here it doesn't say tasa. So
I got a potential answer.
Okay,
the potential.
Maybe we'll wait till the end already because it's already involved. We went a little further.
Very simple answer. Very simple answer. That because metakin mana on Yom Tov is durabanan, maybe the Durabanan is not gonna be strong enough to make it an isser of mitzvah babi avera to be mevatel the mitzvah.
Okay, we have to look into that. If an isser rabbanan is a avera which cancels out the mitzvah, which makes it problematic. Okay, I don't recall. Okay, so the Gemara says there's no problem. Let's assume there's no issue of tasla manasi over here. So what's the problem? If you took off the berries of the hadassim, why should it be possible? Why is Rabbi Elazar say that it's possible? My the machloks must be the following: the man the pasal sava mini yeshtiches al mitzvahs, the man the machshel sava lo mini yeshtiches al mitzvahs. The fact that Yontif came in and it was a pasal hadas, Rabbi Elazar says that you can't make it kosher on Yontif because it's not because Isra of Yontif, but because it was already a pasal mitzvah. It can't become any more kosher. So that means Rabbi Elazar says yesh dichoy, that the mitzvah is pushed away. The Rabbanan say it's kosher, they hold ein dichoy. So isn't it a machlokes on this issue of making a pasal hadas kosher? Isn't it a machlokes Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzaddik and the Rabbanan? So the Gemara says on the bottom line, on the top, low, not necessarily. Everybody holds there's no problem. Means Rabbanan surely hold there's no problem. They hold that as kosher. This much we do see that Rabbanan say there's no problem of dichoy. But the question was, why does Rabbi Tzaddik say that it's possible? We thought first it's because dichoy. The Gemara says no, it could be tasel manosei. That's what the Gemara is going to do now. That maybe the issue is tasel manosei. The machlokes is you learn out lulav just like the sukkah has to be taseh. So too the lulav has to be made. But then to make an eged is called taseh, and he did it this way that you first put it into the eged and then you made it kosher. That's why Rabbi Elazar says tasel manosei. Ma'asav yafin lulav misukah that there's a problem with tasel manosei, or ma'asav lo yafin lulav misukah there's no problem with tasel manosei. But dichoy wouldn't be a problem. Or you could say another reason why there's no problem with tasla manosei because no mitzvah to do it at all. If you would have held there's a mitzvah to do eged, then everyone would have said you learn out from sukkah to tasla manosei. But here they say by lulav there's no mitzvah eged at all. They're arguing if you have to make an eged by a lulav at all. Look, this we had already before. Tanya lulav ben oged ben sheina oged kasher. Tanakama says you don't have to bind the lulav together with the dasim and arogos. Rabbi Yudom oged kasher sheina oged pasal. It's only kosher if you bind it together. The Gemara finished over here. We'll go a little bit further, but the Gemara finished. We'll go a little bit further. There's a lot to do still, but I'm saying this sugya is more or less finished. What does the Gemara want to know? Is there a problem of dichoy? The fact that the hadas was disqualified, could it become kosher or not? The Gemara first saw that machlokes tanon, but the Gemara says no. It could be everybody holds that it's kosher, and the Rabbanan surely hold that it's kosher. And even when the Gemara says low, the Gemara says could be Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzaddik also hold that it's kosher. So even though the Gemara said a second ago teku, we said when the Gemara said no teku, let it stand. It isn't standing so much. Here the Gemara said teku, but then once the Gemara continues, it comes out that surely it's kosher. The Rabbanan holds surely that's kosher, and even Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzaddik might hold that's kosher. But regardless, what Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzaddik holds, the Rabbanan say that dichu is not a problem, and that's going to be the halacha that. If the lulav, if the hadas came into the yontif when it was possible and it became kosher on yontif, it is kosher. The only thing the Gemara talks about is tasel manosei. We hold that also. We hold lulav ein tzarech eged. So the halacha is going to be that if it was disqualified, it could become qualified on yontif. The Gemara wants to mention the machlokes about the lulav doesn't have to have eged or not. The Gemara goes in to this, which is mamash copy and paste what we had from Yudala from the base, the same sugya over again. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. Where's Rabbi Yehuda get that the lulav has to be bound together with the dasman arogos? The alef lakicha says it learns from the word lakicha that it says both here by lulav and also says by the mitzvah by the korban pesach they should take on agudas ezo and they should smear the blood on the doorpost. Over there it says aguda. That's the page. So that says the mitzvah of taking the dal with meaning. It says lukachtem. By pesach it says lukachtem agudas ezo, and over there it says where aguda that it has to be bound together. First line, ma'al and aguda kan aguda. That's like over there. It has to be bound together. The ezo has to be bound together. So too the lulav together with the dasam and the rubs have to be bound together. Rabbanan argue they don't hold the gzer shava. Rabbanan let's look lakicha. They don't hold this gzer shava. So we have machlokes and we pass along to Rabbanan that you don't have to bind tadasim together with the lulav. Who's the author of the following brisa? Lulav mitzvah lagdol, v'im lagdol kosher. Sachatchili, you should bind it together with Tadas and Rabos, but if it didn't, it's still kosher. Who's the author of that? Mani, Irabuda kilagda my kosher. He holds even with the evidence it's not kosher if you didn't bind it together. Irabanan, my mitzvah. Why should there be a mitzvah chatchili even? My mitzvah, what's the mitzvah? The Gemara says la'olam rabbanan. That's a beautiful thing to hold it all together, all the three together. That's beautiful to tie together, but not that you have to. It's not the mitzvah of lokachtem, but it's a beautiful thing to put it together. So that's how we pass it also. Just to get the Gemara so far. in subjects we spoke about. The first thing was about Nashru, and we say that of each branch, of each level, you have to have three. If you don't have three, it's not called Avos on that spot of that three. But how many you have to have in the length of the Hadas, and that's going to be the posting that say Rove is good enough. Yavshu, we said that if it dries up, even if the whole thing is dry, according to Rashi, as long as the top three leaves are moist, it's good enough. According to the Rosh, if you have three groups, that one of the dominant leaves in each group is moist, that's good enough. After that, the Gemara brought that if Niktam Rosho, that the stem of the Hadassim got cut off, so it's possible, but if a berry grows in its place, it's kosher. And then the rest of the Gemara was, if it came into Yantif and it was possible, and it grew a berry on Yantif, it could become kosher. The Gemara Agav talks about Taslam and Osir, but Alula, we hold like the Rabbana, there's no mitzvah of Eged, so to show, issue of Taslam and Osir. Lachatchila, it is good to make an Eged that we do it, we put the Hadassim and the Ravas together with the Lula. But you are Yotze, even if they would be separated. The next thing the Mishnah said, if you had more berries than leave of the Hadassim, also it's possible. The following thing our great teacher said. Who's the great teacher? Rashi says Rav. Rav Chisda's Rebbe was Rav. And he said, Rav said the following, once he mentioned it, we gave him a bracha, like we say Shlita. After we say a big Rav, we say Shlita. He said, that Hashem should be in his help, Hashem should be in his support, Hashem should take care of him. What did Rav say? It's only if it's all concentrated, the berries in one place. Even if you have, according to what he said so far, even if you have more berries than leaves, but if they're not concentrated in one place, the berries are all spread out in 2 or 3 places, then it's kosher. Right away to Gemara, on gives Amar Rava, they take out the lady. Amar Rava, the next page, Amar Rava, Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis.
We went there already. Is this Bryson now?
We just said Rav Chisda, and now Rav is asking, you can't say that if the berries are not concentrated in one place, it's kosher. That there's a problem when it's separated also. It's true, concentrated maybe is one problem, but also when it's spread out, there's another problem. It's called manuma, that it looks spotted. You have das that has berries there, berries there, berries there. It's also not a nice thing. So that shouldn't be kosher. The real way to quote Rav Chisda was misquoted. It should be quoted like this. It says in the Mishnah that if you have more berries than leaves, it's possible. So the following thing Rav said, Hashem should always take care of Rav. Only blackberries is the problem. But if it's green berries, it blends in together with the hadas, which is green and it's kosher. So what do we learn? That green berries are kosher. Even if you have many green berries, it's not a problem. Only if it's colored berries, blackberries, that's the problem. Then it becomes puzzle.
Unless it's a meat.
Yes, true. Mir, we said, raw berries is a problem only if they're black. And the more continues, that red berries are as bad as black. He there is talking about Amnida, and he says that the red blood is what makes her tamei, but it said that black blood is also going to be tamei because it's also originally red, just that it got miscolored and it turned black. So black and red is the same thing. And Al-Gamar also it says that the red berry is also going to be possible. So black and red berries are possible if you have more than the leaves, and green are kosher even if you have more than if you have green berries, then you can take it, and someone's going to come to you and say you have green berries on your hadas. He says, fine, green berries. The Gemara says kosher. Okay, that's kosher. Okay, and then they talk about if you have that it's spread out. The Gemara says on the top that even if they're spread out, these red berries, blackberries, if they're spread out, it's possible. A focus in the according to the gear, so Tais points out that maybe it might be possible even if you have less than row. Even if you have miyot of berries, if it's spread out 2 or 3 places, it might be possible. Depends on the gears and the Gemara. So probably mark around that also. And there's no big problem. Just take it off. Take off the berries, no problem. The green berries, you can leave one if you want to.
We don't have the problem taking off something that makes it kosher, and then that doesn't.
No, we spoke about the green berries as kosher. So that's not a problem at all. Green berries, you can leave it on if you want to. If you want to take it off, take it off. And the red berries, we say, they're taking it off if it's a meat only, then it's kosher also the way it is. If you have row, or if you have spotted, maybe it's possible. And then we said, take it off before Yantif. On Yantif, you should not take it off because you're mitikin mana. And if you took it off, we say that it's also kosher. In Miyatan Kosher, we're going to discuss again the issue about Dichoy. The Gemara is going to come in again. The rest of the Sukkah is going to talk about Dichoy we mentioned so far. And the Gemara now is going to continue. It says in Miyatan Kosher, the Mishnah says that if you took off the berries, it's kosher. That you don't have to, this hadas is possible, take off the berries and it's kosher before you enter. Let's say, the Gemara says, when is it talking about? In Miyatinu Emas, when did you take off the berries? That is kosher. It's not even yet bound into the lulav. You have hadas, that's not yet together with the lulav. and you took off these black berries, and you're saying that it's kosher, pshita, that the Gemara doesn't even see a chiddush. It's not even what the Rashi says. It isn't even in the time of the mitzvah b'chlal. It's not even in the sugya. It's not, of course, it's kosher to take off the berries before it gets into the lulav. Ella labasa the lag day. You must be talking about this after it's inside the egg already. That you bound the lulav together with the adas and the rabos, and you have puzzle. It's a puzzle adas, and now you took off the berries. And the Gemara says, back to the question we had, isn't that a case that it was originally puzzle and now you made it kosher? Don't you see a proof from here that it's kosher? Well, we wanted to bring a proof before that we said that it was a question of that it was disqualified and now it became qualified. Is it kosher or not? Doesn't it say here that it's kosher? That it's kosher? The Gemara says no, it doesn't say that. Since Yantav didn't here, before Yantav came in, the Mishnah says you could take off the berries. That means before Yantav. Right away it says on Yantav don't take it off because it's already Yantav. Tikkun mana, you're fixing something up. Don't do it on Yantav. So we're talking about before the Yantav. The question is, the Gemara is talking about if you had the lulav already bound. You had the bound lulav, but it's before Yantav. Every Yantav, you took the hadas and the rabas, you bound it together with the lulav, and then you took off the berries before Yantav. Is that called that it's already in the sugya of the mitzvah? It's in the ballpark, as they say. Is it already called dichoy? Or it's not even called dichoy. It's like it didn't even enter the mitzvah yet. So first the Gemara thought that if you bound it together, even before Yantav, it's already in the ballpark, and by taking off, making it kosher, it's called dichoy mekar. First it was disqualified, you made it qualified. But the Gemara says no. If it's before Yantif, even if it's already bound, it's not called in the ballpark yet. It's not called in the gather. It's not even in the subject yet to say, is it kosher, is it not kosher? It's like you're in the fruit store. You went to the botanical gardens. It's nothing to do with kosher, not kosher. It's only once it's in the lulav and it's Yantif already. So that the Gemara is saying that if you took off the berries before Yantif, it doesn't even get into the sugya of dichum meikara. It's even before meikara. Meikara means that it was originally possible for a mitzvah, but it's already in the parsha of a mitzvah. But if it's not yet Yantif, it's not even called dichum meikara. So it's not even a raya ta'al sugya. We're going to get to it right away. We're going to talk about it now on Yantif. The next subject goes back to Yantif again. But if it's before Yantif, then it's not even a subject. Even if you hold Dichmei Korah is a problem, that's not a problem because it's not even called in the ballpark at all. The Mishnah continued, Ein Matin B'Yantif. This is not much what we had on Amud Aleph. It's very interesting how the Gemara spoke about it on the Amud Aleph and Amud Beis without comparing notes. That is not Kilu, the Gemara starting for the first time again. We had the question before that if you had something which was on Yantif and it was already puzzle and now it becomes kosher, that you say dichmei korah. Before the Gemara said, and here the Gemara is not bringing down the price. It's just saying that the Mishnah alone sounds like if you transgressed and picked the berries on Yantif, it is going to be kosher, even though you're not allowed to do it. My kosher. Really, it's a brisa. The brisa and Amud Aleph said that according to abundance is kosher, but Lazar says that it's possible. Here the Gemara is ignoring the brisa. That's the Mishnah alone. The Mishnah alone implies that if you did take off the berries, it is kosher. It's mashma in the Mishnah that if you take off the berries on Yantif, it is going to be kosher. And now the Gemara goes into the issue of the blackberries and the green berries. This is a new thing that the Gemara didn't have in Amud Aleph. On Amud Aleph, the Gemara just had berries are puzzle. But now once we found out that green berries are not a problem anymore, so now the Gemara wants to know, when did these berries become puzzle? It means you could have that these berries were originally green and then they got black. And as time went on, Rashi says that it dried out, or maybe because they got more ripe. Whatever the case is, first it was green and then it became black. So what's the case? You had these berries that made that Adah should be puzzle. The Ashur Amos, when did they become black? They were originally green berries maybe. When did they become black? If when the Yantif came in, they were black berries, and then you took them off on Yantif, it makes Adah should be kosher. So at least you see that Dichmei Korah is kosher. That even though when Yantif came in, that's when the whole issue started. Is it a kosher adas? Yantif came in, you looked at your lulav, and it's already a good, it's already bound together, and you have blackberries puzzle. And now you take it off, you made it kosher. And the Mishnah says that you shouldn't do it, but it's mashma that if you did it, it's going to be kosher. That means that it doesn't become nitcha, it doesn't become pushed away. And even though originally the adas were puzzle, now you made it kosher. So you have a right to our subject we spoke on Amud Aleph that you don't say dichos. If you want to say that it happened that first it was a green berry, then it turned black, then you took it off. It's even worse. Then you can have even a bigger chiddush. That first when the Yantif came in, it was kosher, and then it came disqualified. Then it's going to become qualified again. And the mashal we said before about something that was pushed away, so it came out in the mashal that if somebody was always disqualified, whatever case was, he was a criminal, whatever, it was always then he became somehow qualified. So that's not as bad as somebody who was already the president, and then he became impeached, then he became a president again. It's a bigger insult when somebody was kosher and disqualified. So here the Gemara is going with these fars, that one issue is dichmei korah. Something was originally always possible, could it become qualified? There's a bigger question, like even a bigger chiddush to say that it's kosher, that even if it was kosher and then disqualified, could it become requalified again? So the Gemara is saying, if you're going to say the case was El Lav the Ashkel B'Yom, if the case is going to be that it became black on Yom Tov, means when Yom Tov came in, it was green berries. That means it was kosher. Then they blacked it, it became puzzle. And then he picked up the berries, it became kosher again. That's even bigger chiddush. Ne'er v'nitchu. That's the case, not Tichim Meikara. The two terminology, the two terms is Tochim Meikara and Ne'er v'nitchu. Tichim Meikara means that it was originally puzzle and now became qualified. And Ne'er v'nitchu means that it once was kosher, then it became pushed away, then it became kosher again. Ne'er v'nitchu. That was once fitting, and then it became disqualified, and now it's going to become qualified again. You can even have a bigger chiddush that even if it was kosher and it was disqualified, it also could become kosher again. So choose which one do you want to prove. The one says you're right. I'm going to prove. I'm giving into the small chiddush. I'm not going to give into the big chiddush. Lo, la'olam la'ashka meikara. I'll say the cases that it became when it came in, it was blackberries, then it was puzzle. You know, you could prove from here that originally it was disqualified, it could become qualified. But you can't prove the big chiddush that if it was fitting and became disqualified, it become fitting again. That's the end of the sugya. Just to sum up the halacha, the Gemara made many proofs that Dichim Meikara is kosher. That if this last Gemara says it again, and the Gemara said it on Aleph also. And according to Rabbanan of Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Tzaddik Shuli, they say so that it's kosher. That if something was disqualified when it first became in the ballpark of the mitzvah, it was disqualified, and then it became kosher. It could become kosher. There's no problem. Tichim Meikara could become kosher. It's not this. The same thing as the Kisei Adam. Even though the Gemara wanted to say the Kula, the Chumrah comes out the same thing. The same way that Kisei Adam, that even though temporarily it was pushed away from doing the mitzvah, but if the wind blows it, if it comes uncovered again, you have to do the mitzvah of Kisei Adam. So too, even if you had a hadas that was puzzle, but it became qualified again, it does become kosher. But the case of Ne'er v'nitcha that the Gemara says is a bigger chiddush, that tak in the poskim is not clear. The Shulchan Aruch is mashma that it's kosher, but the Biur Halacha says that many poskim say not to. So therefore, in the case where it was kosher and became disqualified, so then not to be somach that it could become kosher again.
Right. But just it starts with green. Then you wake up Shabbos morning and then
It's black.
It's black. So you can't use it.
Right. If you have that'll be the case. That most of them are, most berries are more than the leaves, so it's possible. And you don't take it off on Yom Tov. If you did, we talk about if it's kosher or not, but you're not allowed to do it. But you could have taken it off before Yom Tov if you wanted to, and it was green. You didn't have to. It was green, no problem.
But usually it would turn from green to black. It's not going to turn from black to green.
No, the answer would be to take it off.
Take it off.
That would be the case, right? It's not going to go back to green again, right? Tanu Rabbanan. Now we're going to the subject. Are you allowed to take it off? And we said the whole time you're not allowed to take it off because you're attacking money. You have a puzzle thing that you're making kosher. Tanu Rabbanan ain't matam Yom Tov. That's what the Mishnah says. That you're not allowed to take off these berries on Yom Tov because they're making the hadas to be kosher. But Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon argues. Yeshim Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon Amru Matan. You're allowed to take it off. And the mother doesn't. Why should you take it off? If you're fixing up something, same way you're not allowed to build, and the more things is pasha that you're not allowed to fix things like taking off truma, teva, all these things. So too, you're not allowed to make it. If also hadas, you're making it kosher. You're not doing it for the kosher. You're doing it because you want to eat berries. So same way you have a cluster of grapes, you take off the grapes off the cluster, no problem on Shabbos. So too, I have berries. Happens to be hadas. I want to have the hadas berries, no problem. You're allowed to take it off. But the Gemara says a problem because of Dav Shem Eskav. The mice are making it kosher. By the grapes, you're not doing anything. You take off the cluster, so you throw the cluster in the garbage. But by the here, you have hadas, it became kosher. And it's like a Dav Shem Eskav. According to Yehuda, the famous Machokus, Dav Shem Eskav is mutter also. But we do hold you're not allowed to because the mice are making it kosher. And Rabbi Shimon holds Dav Shem Eskav is mutter. And that's why Rabbi Shimon holds like his father, I'm allowed to eat the berries, even though the hadas is becoming kosher. But the more says this situation, famous example that if you cut the head off an animal, you can't say I don't want it to die. It's going to die. It's automatic. It's sure going to happen. So too, if it's automatically going to become kosher, so it's subsequation. And even Rav Shimon holds that you're not allowed to do a Shabbat Dav Shem Eskaven if it's definitely going to happen. Here, it's definitely going to become kosher. He has other hadas, he doesn't need it at all. So Rashi says it's not considered, it's not the parashas, like grapes. He happens to be that it's an hadas. What's the difference? It's a myrtle branch. Don't call it hadas, call it a myrtle branch. He has myrtle berries. He wants to eat myrtle berries. He doesn't need it at all. If it will be that he needs this for the lulav, so then you talk about it's kosher, not kosher. Yeah, even though it's becoming kosher, but I don't need it. I have a bunch of hadasim. So therefore he'd be allowed to eat it. And why do the Tanakham say you're not supposed to? Because also like Abiyud, Dav Shem Eskav is also, and it is becoming a kosher one. So therefore it should be also according to Abiyud. Tana one more sugya, which is probably the easiest of the day. Tana Rabbanan. I hope everybody enjoyed today. It was a bit involved. Tana Rabbanan. Puter Ogdo, if you had tied the lulav together with the dasim and avravos, and it came out, Puter Ogdo b'yom tov, it came out, what do you do? Ogdo ka'aguda shel yorov. So then just wind it around, whatever string you're going to use or whatever, lulav, whatever you do. So wind it around and just tuck it in. That's the best you can do. You can't make any knots. Why not make a bow? A bow is mutter on Shabbos and Yontif. Abuda happens to hold that you're not allowed to make a bow on Shabbos either. Bow is like a knot, but we hold like the Rabbanan that you're allowed to make a bow. According to us, you'd be allowed to make a bow. Abuda is not allowed to make a bow. The Gemara says Abuda, Eged Malisai boy. Abuda is the one who happens to hold that lulav boy Eged. You have to bind it together, and the Gemara says that you have to mamish bind it together. And a bow and winding it around wouldn't be good enough. Maybe a bow would be good if you hold it sheer, but you're not allowed to do that. So to wind it around and to tuck it in, you didn't do anything. Lulav sarach Eged, and you can't be yosef the mitzvah. According to Abuda, if you have a lulav that's not bound together with a tasman or ravos, you're not yosef the mitzvah. Even if you took all of them together and you shook all of them, you're not yosef. It has to be bound together dafka. So what's the purpose of winding it around and tucking it in? You didn't have it Eged. It's not a good together, so it's possible.
We don't know this.
Right? The Gemara says, this Tana of this Brisa that says tuck it in, he holds, but don't make a bow. He holds like a Yehuda that you're not allowed to make a bow, but he holds like the Rabbanan that you don't have to have an eged. It's kosher even if you didn't. It's just a mitzvah of Agdo, like it says that Zakelu and Veyu, it's a mitzvah to do it. So for that mitzvah, it's enough to wind it around, and that'll be kosher. Allah, we paskin like that. We paskin that you don't really need an egg, as I said, Zakelu and Veyu. The big question they talk about is what we do, that they make kosher klach and they make all kinds of tabaot. They make like the rings and they tuck it around. It's not a real knot. And the Gemara seems to say, according to you, they need a knot. You need a double knot that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So we, lachatchila, mitzvah lagdo, do we have to at least do lachatchila to make a double knot? Most people don't. Most people just make kosher klach and wind it around. They don't make a knot. So that's a question. So Rashi seems to say over here that you have to have a double knot. Lachatchila, not but yeah, lachatchila should have a double knot. Lachatchila do like Abuda, it's not ma'akeh, but lachatchila do. If not, then wind it around something. But lachatchila make a double knot, make a knot. But the poskim, the Mishnah brings down from a sefer Abu Ba'alacha that he says that doesn't mean that. It just means it should be tight. If you can make kosher klach that's tight, it's also good enough. Doesn't mean that's to be a knot. According to Abuda, it's true. According to Abuda, it's mashma that it has to be a knot, maybe.
It means either are not. You wrap it around,
If you wrap it around, and then what do you do?
and then you tuck it in, it makes a knot.
Tucking it in is not a knot.
It's a simple knot.
If you just tuck it around, that's what the Gemara says. Yeah, Aguda shal yera. What is a knot?
The one used by itself.
It won't. I mean, if it's just tucked in, that has to be like a knot that at least a double knot. Like Allah Hilchah Shabbos, what's called a knot? At least a double knot. That's like the simplest one. Ma'aseh Hediot and Kesher Shel Kayama. But the minimum is that has to be a double, maybe even a bow. That's what you do in a house like that. But it has to be something that doesn't come apart.
If you tuck it in and pull it tight, it doesn't come apart.
Why not? Eventually it does. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
From moving it around.
It's like a safe for years.
Years.
I
tuck it in.
from previous episodes.
Yeah, it stays like that. Just tucking it in.
Yeah.
After
Why pull it tight?
I have to see how you do it. I have to learn from you because mine, even with my knot, it comes out after a couple of days.
45 an hour later.
You'll teach us.
This is how to do it.
So you're little.
Okay, that's today's done.
You did strips. So
Big strips, yeah. It comes thinner, yeah.
then you
I wasn't successful yet. Okay, but okay.
This can
So
be on Yontif. This is on Yontif.
this is Anyantif, right? Anyantif. Before Yantif, you can make it as high as you want. They can ask if you want and everything. And the minig is not to make nuts. The minig is to make the kosher klach. And the Mishnah Berurah says from the sefer that as long as it's tight, it's okay
There you go.
and doesn't come apart. You can say azikonim, but they call what do they call these in English? Azikonim. But they what do they call that in English? But the modern thing of the plastic ties, whatever. So the is also according to the sefer of the Mishnah Berurah brings down. So as long as it's tight and doesn't come out, it's good. It's very simple to do like that. But rubber bands, whatever you want, whatever keeps it tight. Maybe put a little leaf on top of it that should look like a kosher glove. Okay. To review the halachas that we had today, Nashu, we said that if the one leaf falls off out of the three, it's not called anymore triple anymore. And that's all the Gemara says. If you have seven leaves coming out, then you can get rove missing and still have three, but you must have three. After that, the Gemara says, Shem Lavuya is okay, even though it has an accompanying name, like us and Mitzvah still kosher, because it's of us Mikol Makom. Even if most of the leaves became dried, as long as you have, according to Rashi, the top three leaves are moist, it's kosher. According to the Rosh, you have to have three levels, that at least one of each level is moist, the dominant leaf. Mishnah Shulchan Aruch is on both pshatim. Mikdar Moshe was not going on the leaf. If the top leaf got cut off, it's not a problem. But if the stem got cut off, there's a problem. If a berry grows in this place, it makes it kosher. And the whole city of Dichi Meikor, we pass Dichi Meikor is okay. Only Ner V'Nitcha would be a question which the poskim say they don't know. But Dichi Meikor is kosher. The Gemara brought an issue also about Dichi, other mitzvahs, about Kisi Adam, the same thing, that if the wind covered it, you don't have to cover it while it's covered. Once it gets uncovered, you do have to uncover it, and everybody else of that. But maybe in the Kula, that was a question, and we passed in Dichi Meikor also is not Dachul.
What's the problem? With the wind and blew it on, you didn't do the mice. Why is that?
Yes, but as long as it's covered, I don't have to, because no mitzvah is covered, I don't have to cover it, it's covered already. And if it got uncovered, then
There's no need to cover.
there's no mitzvah to do, the blood is covered. I don't have a mitzvah, I didn't get a mitzvah, the wind got a mitzvah, I didn't do it, but
Yeah, but the Torah says specifically
but it's covered already, So therefore, there's no mitzvah to do at that time. And if it got uncovered, then there's a mitzvah.
We
No
have a
different.
thing with dam bris, that if the kid got an automatic bris, you have to do a mice.
There's no
He's
thing,
born with the bris, so you still have to do the mice.
by Kisei Adam, there's no halacha like that. And then we spoke about green berries is not a problem, red berries is a problem, only rogue. And maybe if it's in two or three places, maybe it's possible even if it's a mir, that's a question in the Girsa. After that, if it was to take off the berries before Yantif, it's surely not a problem, even on Yantif, which would be a question of Dicha Meikara, we pass Dicha Meikara is mutter, you're not allowed to take it off. The Gemara says at the end that you might be allowed to take it off if you're just doing it for food, and Dav Shem Miskava, and it's not Sikresha because you don't need it, then you'd be allowed to take it off also. As far as the last sugi was, we hold that you don't need an eged. The point of view that you need an eged and you need a knot. The point of view, Mitzvah Lavdo, if you could make an eged, and Yantif it came out, so then just wind it in, and you didn't get the real eged, but as long as it holds, whatever it holds is some kind of a Hidden mitzvah.
Time gives what's the name of the sefer?
Agura ba'alacha. Agura ba'ahalcha.
Agura
Agura ba'ahalcha. I will live, I will dwell in your tent. So he says that the whole point of that is to be tight. It doesn't make difference if it's a knot or not. Yashikoach, everybody. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Yishkoach.
So, thank you.
You make us feel bad because Europe